Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to present International Leadership 7030 SSL, and our selected leaders is Indra Nui and Bob Iger. In this presentation, our group consists of four members: me, myself, Donna Rosario, Abhishek Justin, Mohammed Nafi, and Ayaz A. Moving on to the next slide. In this slide, our presentation is titled A Critical Analysis of the Leadership Style of Indra Nooyi and Bob Iger. Our group will be examine how these two globally influential leaders demonstrate leadership through distant yet equally impactful approaches. Both have led multinational organizations through complex global challenges, shaping industries and redefining with effective, ethical, and visionary leadership. It means in the foundation behind their success and offer critical reflections on recommendations for leadership in complementary contexts. Moving on to the next slide. In this slide, it's a table of contents. It includes introduction and a first leader, Indra Nui, leadership overview of Indra Nui, transformational leadership, 4 Eyes framework, skill-based leadership, theoretical integration and critique. And the second leader we choose that Bob Iger and his leadership overview of Bob Iger, transformational leadership and 4I framework, situational leadership, theoretical integration and critique, comparative analysis, Intranui versus Bob Iger, and the conclusions, recommendations, and the references. Moving on to the next slide. Introduction. The purpose of this presentation is to critically evaluate the leadership approaches of Indra Nooyi, former CEO of PepsiCo, and Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. Throughout this analysis, we will apply relevant leadership theories, assess the strength and limitation of their styles, and discuss the contextual factors that shape their leadership outcomes. Our goal is to not only compare these two leaders, but also draw lessons that apply to broader organizational and leadership context. As Meadows explains in 2021, leadership is not simply about authority or vision. It is about the adaptability to adapt, motivate, and ethically guide people to a shared success. This principle serves as the foundation for our analysis. Moving on to the next slide. Our first chosen leader is Indra Nooyi. Indra Nooyi served as the CEO of PepsiCo from 2006 to 2019, during which she transformed the company's identity and performance. Under her leadership, revenues grew from 35 billion to 63 billion dollars, while the company's share price rose by approximately 80%. Her flagship initiative, Performance with Purpose, aligned financial growth with sustainability, health, and human development. This strategy reflected her belief that long-term business success depend on ethical responsibility and social value creation. Noy's inclusive and purpose-driven approaches earned her recognition as one of the world's most respected CEOs, positioning PepsiCo as the global leader in the ethical and sustainable innovation. Moving on to the next slide. And this slide is the leadership overview. Indra Nooyi's leadership can be understood primarily through the lens of transformational leadership, characterized by her ability to inspire vision and ethical motivation. As a secondary style, she embodied skills based leadership, effectively combining technical expertise, human sensitivity, and conceptual foresight. Her leadership was grounded in empathy, innovation, and purpose driven capitalism, demonstrating that profitability and social progress can coexist. However, her long term focus on sustainability and ethics sometimes attracted criticism from investors who sought faster, short term returns, highlighting the constant tensions between the visionary leadership and shareholders' expectations. Moving on to the next slide, my friend Abhishek will take out from here.
Thank you, Donna. So, from the next slide, we are going to see about the transformational leadership, the four eyes framework. In this, Indra Nooyi's leadership reflects all four dimensions of transformational leadership as proposed by BASE. So, through idealized influence, she embodied corporate integrity and authenticity, becoming a role model for ethical leadership. And her inspirational motivation was evident in how she communicated a compelling vision that connected profit with purpose and the intellectual stimulation. In the intellectual stimulation was reflected in her encouragement of innovation, particularly through PepsiCo's shift toward healthier and more sustainable products. Finally, her individualized consideration emerged through her mentorship of women leaders and efforts to foster inclusion across global operations. These practices enhanced employee engagement and strengthened PepsiCo's global reputation, though her ethical idealism occasionally challenged short-term financial expectations. So the next slide. This slide is skills-based leadership. So the CATS skills-based leadership in 1955 theory provides that another perspective on noise success. In this, she demonstrated strong technical skills through her strategic financial planning and operational efficiency and business acumen. Her human skills were evident in her empathy, communication, and ability to lead across diverse cultural contexts. Her conceptual skills were displayed in envisioning a sustainable business model that balanced people, planet, and profit. This holistic balance allowed her to operationalize her transformational vision effectively. However, an overemphasis on conceptual goals sometimes led to investor impatience, underscoring the challenge of the balancing visionary ideals and market relates. So it has noise combination of transformational and skills-based leadership as a benchmark for ethical corporate management. So the next slide is theoretical integration and critique. When we integrate transformational and skills-based leadership theories, we see that noise effectiveness stemmed from the synergy between vision and capability. Her leadership was not merely about inspiring others. It was about having the competence and discipline to turn that inspiration into measurable results. While her ethical and sustainability driven focus positioned PepsiCo as a pioneer in responsibility capitalism. It also sparked debates about whether social progress should ever outweigh shareholder value. So, from this, ultimately, Noy's leadership illustrates that ethical purpose, supported by technical and strategic skill, can drive both sustainable growth and cultural transformation. So, from the next slide, will take part by Mohammad Nafi.
Thank you, Abhishek. As we selected, our next leader is Bob Iger. Bob Iger, who served as CEO of the Walt Disney Company from 2005 to 2020, and again in 2022, transformed Disney into one of the world's largest and most influential entertainment corporations. Under his leadership, Disney market's value rose from 48 billion to 257 billion dollars. He oversaw historic acquisitions, including Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and 21st Century Fox. For expanding Disney's creative and commercial reach, his leadership was marked by bold strategic decisions, a deep appreciation for storytelling, and a vision that united technology, creativity, and culture under one cohesive brand identity. The next slide is leadership overview. Bob Iger's leadership is best described as transformational with elements of situational leadership. He inspired innovation and built a unified company culture centered on creativity and excellence. His transformational qualities were evident and how he motivated employees to embrace change and think beyond traditional boundaries. Meanwhile, his situational adaptability allowed him to adjust his leadership style depending on the context. Whether negotiating $1 billion acquisition or empowering creative teams. However, critics argue that his leadership was overly centralized, relying heavily on his personal vision and charisma, which created challenges for succession planning and decentralization. The next slide is transformational leadership. The four I's in practice, Bob Iger demonstrated idealized influence through authenticity, trustworthiness, and commitment to creativity, which unified Disney's previous fragmented divisions. His inspirational motivation came through in the One Disney vision promoting storytelling excellence as the company's core identity. Through intellectual stimulation, he encouraged digital transformation, leading initiatives such as Disney Plus, which redefined entertainment consumption. Finally, he individualized consideration was evident in how he empowered creative leaders from Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, granting them autonomy to innovate. While these qualities um, reinforced Disney's creative power, Iger's heavy reliance on acquisitions raised questions about long-term creative independence and the risk of centralizing power. The next slide is situational leadership. According to Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory, effective leaders adapt their style based on followers' readiness and task complexity. Iger's leadership exemplified this adaptability during major acquisitions. He adopted a directive style, providing clear guidance and control to ensure precision and alignment. During the integration phases, he transitioned to a coaching approach, inspiring teams to embrace Disney's culture and shared vision. With creative teams, he shifted to a supporting role, inspiring, encouraging autonomy and collaboration. Finally, he delegated authority to trusted executives to manage specific divisions independently. This flexibility enhanced Disney's capacity for innovation, but sometimes led to inconsistent empowerment across teams, reflecting the trade of situational leadership. The remaining will take my friend.
Thank you, Nafi. Now I will continue the remaining presentation. Now let's talk about in this slide the theoretical integration and critique of Bob Iger's. Here, the Bob Iger's leadership demonstrate how transformational vision can be enhanced through situational adaptability. His ability to combine strategic foresight with contextual sensitivity allow Disney to sustain both creativity and the profitability. In here, the Bob Iger's success was rooted in balancing inspiration with pragmatic execution and approach that ensured Disney remained at the forefront of global entertainment. However, his reliance and acquisition as a growth strategy revealed that limits of centralized leadership in rapidly evolving media landscape. At the same time, his adaptability remains a defining strength, providing that visionary leadership must always involve with its environment. Now let's move on to the next slide. In this slide, you can see, let's talk about the comparative analysis in between Indra Nooyi versus Bob Iger. Here, when comparing Indra Nooyi and Bob Iger, both emerge as exemplary transformational leaders, but their context and methods differ significantly. Nooyi's leadership was grounded in ethics, inclusion, and sustainability, aligning business strategy with social responsibility. And Bob Iger's approach was centered on creativity, innovation, and the global expansion, driving Disney's dominance through strategic risk-taking. While Indra Nooyi's second style, skill-based leadership, which emphasized empathy and the competence. And the Bob Iger's situational approach showcased flexibility and the responsiveness. At the same time, both leaders illustrate how transformational principles can manifest differently depending on organizational culture and industry demands, providing that there is no single formula for effective leadership. And now let's move on to the next slide. This is the final slide of our presentation. Here, let's talk about the conclusion and the recommendation of this presentation. Now, in conclusion, both Indra Nooyi and the Bob Iger exemplify how transformational leadership, when paired with practical adaptability, can produce exceptional and lasting impact. For Indra Nooyi, the recommendation is to maintain her ethical legacy while enhancing agility through digital innovation and balanced stakeholder engagement. For Bob Iger, the recommendation is to further decentralize leadership structure and institutionalization ethic decision making within Disney's culture to ensure sustainability beyond his tenure. Ultimately, our analysis reaffirmed assertion that true leadership arises from the integration of vision, empathy, and the adaptability. And you can see here, both Indra Nooyi and the Bob Iger stand as testaments to this philosophy, demonstrating that transformational leadership remains the most powerful driver of the organizational progress in the modern era. Now, let's move on to the next slide. Here you can see the references. These are the references for our finding to complete our task. So thank you for the patient hearing. Thank you so much.